Thanks for joining us live with Miami's Community News. And our guest today is a hopeful Congresswoman, all right, Christine Olivo. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So people want to know, why do folks run for office? So tell us, Christine.
Well, I tell everyone I didn't get political until it got personal. When I started looking at my children and the country we're leaving behind, I knew that I had to do something drastic, right? It couldn't just be registering a few people to vote. It had to be something where I can really make a huge impact in my community.
So what was the moment that you said, I'm going to run for Congress?
The moment was the former president was separating migrants from their children at the border. And I had it on my heart to go and pray at the White House. I prayed at the White House for 24 hours, no food, no nothing. It was fasting. And I did it all on Facebook Live, and everyone said, Christine, what is next? And I was like, that's a great question. And I looked out, I'm facing the White House, and I said, I think I'm going to run for Congress. At first, actually, I didn't know that it was just going to be Congress per se. I knew it was going to be an office. And as I prayed and fasted a little more, Congress is what really tugged on my heart.
So you were outside the White House.
Yes.
At the end of your 24-hour standoff, fasting,
yes.
And you said, oops, there it is. There's something that was there.
Yes.
So typically people have that somewhere in the backs of their mind. Do you remember the first time that you started thinking about serving the public?
I do. I was a little girl, and I went to Christian school my whole life. And so I'm in pre-K, and my teacher takes us outside and says, all of this belongs to God. And I said, really? And she said, you can make a big difference in your community. You could do so much because look at all that God has given you. It's inside of you. And I went home and I told my grandparents, I said, I want to be on his team. I want to do something big for my community. And I was always sort of just fixated on what I could do in the community. I got involved in our DARE program at school. I got involved in all student activities where we would clean up the beach and do things like that. We built houses for Habitat for Humanity. I became a youth director into an adulthood. And it just was one thing after the other, just spiraling into service. I knew that I wanted to live a servant life.
So you were in kindergarten.
I was in pre-K, Miss Levinsky.
Pre-K. There's not much time from over here to pre-K.
Yeah.
But there was something inside you that was deep inside that allowed you in pre-K to have that internal conversation. What do you think it was?
I think it's my heavy heart for humanity. I've always loved people, and growing up, we were beyond low income. We were a poor family. My family's from Haiti. My grandparents migrated here, and we took in everyone. In my house, we had about 10 people living under the same roof. People were sleeping on the couch, on the floor. I grew up in poverty, but I didn't realize that I grew up in poverty because we all took care of each other. The neighborhood kids would come and eat dinner at our house. My grandma would make enough to feed everyone. I grew up taking care of people because I saw my grandparents take care of people. It's sort of embedded in me.
So you have a purposeful life that you've been living from the time you were, well, probably before you were born. There was something in there that causes one to do that. You're very lucky. Some people, their entire lives, they can't figure out a purpose. Some people develop at a young age. Some people, it changes, all right? And then, so now you're running for District 26.
Yes.
Well, give us the south boundary and the north boundary.
Okay, so district, it's easier east to west, I would say, because it's a long district. So we start in the Midtown, Overtown, Wynwood area, and it goes through Hialeah, Miami Lakes, Doral, all the way down to Immokalee and Naples. It's a very long district.
Mm-hmm. So we know the couple things that strike home for a lot of us that may or may not be in that district. In Dade County, we have a problem with our sewer system. There are 120,000 septic tanks that not just need to be replaced, but the system the pipes have to be there to move that.
Yes.
We have a Biscayne Bay issue, which the county now is cleaning up quite nicely, and I want to thank the mayor and the team for doing that. But we have a flooding issue downtown. I know it's outside of your district, but we all live in the yellow submarine, I think the saying is.
Right by Jackson Memorial Hospital.
Yes.
I'm in that area. It's flooding. Absolutely.
And then we have our Everglades preservation, which the government has been paying attention. We can't get enough preservation because we know right now we have certain animal problems out there, but also to protect the water supply and how those things work. So should you get elected, all right, what are some things that you would like to improve?
The first thing I want to improve is quality of life. I believe that many people in the district, in the country, are suffering because everything, the costs are way too high and the wages are way too low. We don't have a good quality of life. Everyone's stressed out. They're trying to make ends meet. We don't have health care. We need to take care of the person, right? And that means cutting down the cost of food, cutting down the cost of gas, making sure that everybody has guaranteed health care, things like that, and then affordable housing. What can we do, especially on a federal level, to break those barriers for these low-income families to buy a home? That I would love to increase the quality of life in the district.
So we know in the last couple of years, there have been so many things that are going on throughout the world that it's distracted us.
Oh.
I mean, a lot, right? And we thought when we had COVID, all we had to do was stay alive. None of us knew what was going to happen on the other end, which is now, this is not quite the other end, but getting closer to it. And one of the things we've certainly seen recently, the headline news about COVID is no longer headline news, right? It's number 4, 5, or 6 stories. Being in the media business, we know why that occurs, because nobody wants to watch it or to read it. So why have that news when, in fact, people want to read about other things that are going on? Certainly, the price of gas is making everybody nervous and adding to their uncomfortableness, even though for individually, not cost for goods, but individually, doesn't mean a lot. If you're using 20 gallons a week and it's 20 cents less, all right, doesn't amount to a lot. But to get it down to $3 or $2.50, that starts to add up.
Yes.
So we know the gasoline's a big problem. Certainly, there are great minds that are still trying to figure that out. The next thing are food costs.
Yes.
As you brought up. So how does that work out? All right.
Well, I can tell you right now that I'm speaking it into existence as if I'm in Congress, right? There was a bill on the table to lower the price of gas and lower the price of food. My opponent voted no. You have to understand who is representing you as a community. Are they putting your best interests at heart? Congress can do something about it, but only if you have the right representative to vote. Yes, lower the cost of food. Yes, lower the cost of gas. Why not? People are suffering right now.
So there are 435 people in Congress, right?
Yes.
Right. And it's hard to get majorities to make that happen. So even if you want it, all right?
Yes.
What do you do? A question for you is, and people ask me this all the time, what does a congressperson do or a senator do when they really want to get something done, but the party, whatever party says no, you need to vote this way? Mm-hmm. What do you do inside when you say, this really has happened? Do you think that you or congressmen are punished somehow if they don't vote party line?
Okay, I'm going to be extremely candid. That goes for candidates that are also bought by corporations. I'm just being honest. There's a lot of party lines means donor lines. That's what we're talking about, right? You don't want to upset the donors that are donating to the party or donating to the specific candidate. I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm indebted to the people. There is no line that I can fall under other than the line of the people. You can't come to me with some sort of, let's sign this bill to increase, fossil fuel use in America because the fossil fuel industry really needs this to pass or whatever the case is. No, I'm not going to vote that way. I'm going to vote for clean air, clean water for my people, for the people in this district. I'm always going to vote for the people. You will not see me fall in line with anyone but the people of District 26.
And earlier you mentioned something about women. I'll tell you, when my daughter was 13, she was getting bar mitzvah. My conversation, my talk was about successful women. And I mentioned at that time, Janet Reno was involved, and there were a whole list of women. And I talked about the glass ceiling. I said, here are the people that went before you to allow you to move forward and upward to the extent that you want to do that. Certainly, we've seen a lot of changes in that, but that's because people have been persistent about it.
Yes.
So what do we need to do as a community, a world community, or a community here or throughout the United States, so that women have equal rights?
We have to support women. The issue is women have always been looked at as the homemaker, the child caregiver. I have 2 children at home. I work, I'm a teacher. So I juggle a lot. Where's the support for our women? We need to be able to say, in order for us to give you, your equal rights, we need to support you so that you can go to work, right? Let's get some free daycare for our women. And what about equal pay? That's something that we can do right now, today. These are things that would help support women. Not only that, health care. Women have issues and we need to deal with them, but we can't if we don't have a job that's not giving us proper insurance, or if we have to come out of pocket. I came out of pocket for my pregnancy. These are things that we can do to help support women. In the UK, you have a baby, you get maternity leave for 1 year. Let's support women that way, as opposed to tearing women down and attacking women, which is what I feel right now is the energy. Like we see the power of women and we just bring them down every chance we can. And that's not the way to support women. Let's put our money where our mouth is and say, women give birth to this country. Let's support them. Let's get the daycare. Let's get them equal pay. Let's give business opportunities for women. Let's do what we have to do to give women the strength that they need to thrive.
So recently we've had some mass shootings, Parkland, Texas, and quite a few other ones. And when we look at what occurred there, that police were on the scene and a whole bunch of stuff didn't happen. And if we would look back to Minnesota a year or so ago, when the murderer had his knee on the throat of the guy that was on the ground, George Floyd, there were at least 2, perhaps 3 other people that were there within 10 feet. 2 were brand new rookies and had just gotten out of training camp or boot camp. And the killer was the supervisor. So here we have somebody knows several people, including AM emergency services there, 2 or 3 policemen, people in the neighborhood saw what was going on, but nobody could or would do something. Part of the question is, when we see that something's happening, who has the courage to speak up? And if we look with the police department across the country, it sounds like these murders and assassinations that they wanted to follow company policy. This is the way you do that. We know there are going to be other ones that are going to happen. And there are lots of issues surrounding it. But if you could push a button to slow down killings and mass murders, what would that be?
First off, we need mental health available immediately. So many of these troubled teens that are doing, a lot of the crimes, they need to talk to somebody. And not only that, even in the streets, we're not even talking about those that are going and doing mass shootings. We're talking about just one-on-one. Our young men, our young boys, they are struggling. They have had years of abuse and they need to talk to somebody, right? So we have a mental health crisis in this country. We also have an assault weapon crisis in this country. There's no reason why weapons that are used for war are used in our streets, that these kids have access to them. Absolutely not. And if you want to slow down the process of all the gun violence, let's eradicate poverty. A lot of this is happening because in the streets, these families don't have any food to eat. They are stealing and robbing. They are doing whatever they can to survive. Some of these people are selling drugs to survive. How about we legalize marijuana and help some of these people set up dispensaries? I mean, there's so many things that we can do as opposed to just labeling everyone as a criminal and gunning them down or putting our knee on their necks.
So there was a case where the police had been to the home of this youngster, I forget who it was, many times, but there wasn't enough crime to commit this young man who ultimately killed one of his parents and went out and murdered some people. So lots of times our police are not trained enough to do that. The question is, when it's marginal, how do you know that that person is going to be okay or is not going to be okay? And when I was with one of the policemen in the area, he said, Mike, we're going to do a bunch of drug raids. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. We're going to arrest these people and they're going to go to jail. But they live with grandma and the drug dealer pays the bills. So what's grandma going to do? And this whole cycle of they're going to, if they're dealing drugs illegally, okay, great. They're going to go out. When they get out, they may continue that or go into some other violent crime, right? So there's this whole cycle.
But they're dealing drugs because the lack of education, lack of resources. That's what I'm saying. We need to pour more resources into our community, free vocational schools, free community college. We need to help educate our young minds. They're smart. They just need to be pushed in the right direction.
And I agree with you 100%. The question is, when you're in Congress and somebody says, listen, we need to do this, we need to take care of this over here, and we need the money to go over here, and you can't get it down there in Florida, all right? And in your district. So, and that's all the balance. Everybody has their pet projects, and I don't mean to degrade any of their projects and on what to do. And it is difficult. So when you have different arms pulling you in different directions, there's some people that are going to benefit and some people are going to hurt. We like to help the people here in Miami-Dade County because this is where we live and where we can see the actions. Recently, we spoke with the nice folks from Chapman Partnership, and I see the fine work that they do in helping people, off the streets, all right, getting them into an environment where they can learn and be taught something, and they can go back to work so that vicious cycle isn't there. So it is a real challenge. Certainly, you start off with mental health. There's lots of emotional issues, a lot more than before.
Yes.
Because
especially
I have grandkids this big. Half their life has been surrounding COVID. Right?
My kids too.
And so when you look at that, that is a forever thing. All right. And then the parents get stressed. All right. And so you have that whole cycle. So if you had your druthers in the mental health arena in your district, what would you like it to include?
I would like it to include free access to a mental health professional. I would like it to include also access to vocational opportunities, job opportunities, because it's not just helping someone in their mental capacity, it's also helping them find a purpose, right? I think that everyone in the community could have a person that they could rely on to call on if it was there. We don't always have to call 911. What if we had a community, liaison that we can reach out to when someone's having a mental health break? For example, my uncle is going through mental health problems right now. He was found on the street the other day, and he lives not too far from here. They didn't call 911, right? They called the paramedics. The police didn't come, but a firefighter friend of mine said, hey, I just saw your uncle on the street. We were able to get him to a psychiatric doctor. We did not need the police to show up there, guns blazing, with my uncle out there on the street.
Lots of people don't know what else to do. They could dial 211, folks. Dial 211,
211,
which is a referral agency. The biggest challenge is somebody that's in that space right now. They're a little lost, and their providers, their family are not sure what to do.
And they always call 911 first, but we put so much on our officers. Our officers have to do everything. They have to get in the middle of domestic violence. They have to get in the middle of, shootouts, drug deals. Even at our schools, we call the police on our schools. It's too much to put on one department. We have to create another department, like I said, community liaison, whatever you want to call it, just someone that is trained in the mental health profession. And guess what? That can create jobs. If we make this a federal mandate for every municipality to have a community liaison. Now we're creating jobs in the mental health
City
field.
of Doral, are you listening? All right. Pete Cabrera, come on, let's get going. All right. Those things are very important. And part of it is how does that message get communicated with the people that need that knowledge the most?
There's a huge disconnect between the community and the opportunities available for the community. People don't know where to go for things, right? And 211, I know you mentioned it. Listen, I've used 211 before. I used to have homeless youth that I was trying to find shelter for when I was a youth director. I've used 211 before. It is not easy to get through. We need to establish something. And that's why we need to work together. Whatever it is not out there yet, but we can create it. Look at these apps and smartphones. You mean to tell me we can't figure out a way to say, hey, listen, download this app. If you need help, this is where you go.
So mental health issues are finally getting out of the shadow, not completely, because I see people around here when they have a sports injury. Hey, man, I hurt my knee over the weekend, right? Look at this, whatever it happens to be, versus somebody whose heart is broken. All right. No, I'm strong. I'll be okay. All right. And part of that is that when we tell people it's okay to have a problem. All right. And then we know that doctors frequently ask you, how are you doing? All right. In there, some of them asking you if you go into the hospital, feel like killing yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Those things do help, all right, a lot. But in the big way, each of the families need direction. I received a phone call from somebody, and he was sort of desperate. He had his son went after him with a knife.
Oh my.
He was speechless. When I heard that, you realize it's just not those one or two people. It's everybody in their orbit, everybody that's there that gets impacted by that. And so part of it is that we have to be able to ask people, how you doing? No.
Yes.
How are you really doing?
But, growing up in a Caribbean household, and, my husband's Puerto Rican, so even in his household, there was a lot, you hold a lot in. You're taught to just toughen up. Don't share too much. We have to break that stigma down. We need to let our men and women know it's okay to say when something's
wrong. So how do we get that early enough, right? So the little kids, when they're depressed or whatever it is, right, that they'll express themselves and their parents will be able to recognize that and to try to help them. How do we do that in our school systems?
I think that's what we should be focusing on, putting in schools, as opposed to all these other things that we're trying to, especially now with the new legislation, we're stripping teachers away from being able to get the right help for students. We need to open up programs. Like I said, I was part of the DARE program in middle school. I helped one of my classmates. He was being abused. He came to school every day, bruises on his face, his sister every single day. I worked at 5th grade. I worked with my DARE officer to get them out of that house and get the help that they needed. And he was upset with me for saying something, but if you see something, say something.
And one of the things that we recognize, if we look at the United States in 20-year increments, you realize from 60 years ago and 80 years ago, how much progress we've made.
Yes.
And part of today is to look out 20 years from now and say, well, of course we did it all the way from 2022. So part of what we need leaders to do is to look to the future.
Yes.
So that what we're doing today, all right, there's a solution to it, so that when we look down there, of course we have. And if you think about electric cars, who would have thought 20 years ago? All right. By the way, the Miami-Dade County is receiving their first all-electric public works truck,
Wow.
garbage truck, all electric. All right.
Wow.
Exactly. When we look at that, so part of it is to be really looking forward.
Yes.
Elon Musk style, and say we need to do this. So that we say, well, of course, women should be able to vote.
Exactly.
All right. And so my kids, adult kids, I said, no, this is the way it used to be. Really? So yes. So in the beginning, Rosa Parks, all right,
yes,
that we think it's extraordinary, but in 10 years, we think that it is normal.
It depends, because right now our rights are being rolled back every single day.
A lot of that is occurring.
Yeah.
And so I hope that should you get into office, that you represent your constituents and speak from your heart, and you do the things that are important to you. You're a very passionate person. You were fortunate that you recognized that early on.
Yes.
I guess you should thank your parents for that
Yes.
happening at such a young age. I do want to give a shout out to Lauren Page. She is 16 or 17. When she was in second grade, she said to her parents, "Mommy, Daddy, do you know that there's some people that can't read?" Since then, she's now in 10th or 12th grade. She has acquired and redistributed over 300,000 books.
Wow.
All right. So I said, how's that garage looking nowadays? Mom, who tugs around these books? They and the family and her figured out how to do that, how to do something so that somebody can benefit from that. So we got a couple minutes left, but I would like you to tell us 2 things that you would really like to get done come November, should you be elected. What would be on your plate?
The first thing I want to accomplish is a human rights declaration bill. We fight too much about what is a human right and what is not a human right. Housing is a human right. Okay, bodily autonomy is a human right. Healthcare is a human right, among other human rights. And we need to establish that as a country so that no other government entity can impose on our human rights. And the second thing that I would love to do, we are facing a huge climate crisis. I don't think people really understand the depths of it. And I would love to work with my fellow members of Congress to turning the Green New Deal into, instead of just a concept, into a bill so that we can push forward bold climate action policies and create jobs that are green centered. So those are the 2 things I'd like to focus on.
Okay. We typically ask somebody of your stature and who's been massively successful is to speak to some young person out there and help them create a future and tell them what it would be like. And which camera should we be looking to, Michael? That one. So once you look right in there and you're talking to a young person right now.
Your voice, your vote, everything that you think of in your heart matters. I don't want you to give up before the changes happen, because you are the change we've been waiting for. If you think of something that can be a benefit to your community, do it. If you want to run for office, if you want to galvanize your community and say, listen, we're going to go vote for this or put an initiative on the ballot, do it. We need you, because those that are older than us, their time is up. You are the future, and our freedom and our liberty is in your hand. So please, whatever it is that is on your heart, do it. I support you. You can call me and I'll help you.
Wow. Pretty good, huh? Folks, again, you've been listening to Christine Olivo, who's running for Congress District 26.
Yes.
Absentee ballots are about to go out. If they need to reach you, they can find your website all over.
Yes, ChristineForCongress.org.
All right, say it again.
ChristineForCongress.org.
And they can contact you, phone you, email you. And folks, if you want to reach her, she'll be glad to talk to you. But what I would like you to do is make sure you vote for the candidate of your choice. All right. Understand that it is a big, big decision what to do, and volunteer in your community and continue building success for you and your family. Again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And folks, this is Live with Miami's Community News. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us.